Jake Paul cannot keep getting away with this. He has somehow brainwashed a whole group of people into believing that he is actually a good boxer. I'm here to tell the truth today. Jake Paul is not a good fighter, and until he steps in the ring with a worthy opponent, I will continue to reiterate that sentiment. Now, is Paul a better boxer than the average athlete? Absolutely. He's been training for years, he's got 11 fights under his belt, so of course he's better than the guys he's beaten. But that's just it. Paul ain't been stepping in the ring with any actual professional boxers. And the one guy, Tommy Fury, who actually had boxing matches under his belt, beat him. Yes, Anderson Silva and Tyron Woodley are former UFC champions, and they will go into their Hall of Fame one day. Nate Diaz and Ben Askren also had great MMA careers. Yet none of these guys are legit boxers, and the best striker out of all of them, Silva, was giving Paul that work, and some could argue should have won that decision. Other than that, man, these guys look like they have no clue on how to operate inside a ring. Nate Robinson, who was an amazing athlete, a 3-time NBA dunk contest champion, and a 2-sport athlete in his days at the University of Washington. Bro can dunk a basketball with the best of them. But why did we expect him to know how to box? What was impressive about Paul knocking out a 5'8", 180-pound basketball player? Just because he had a well-known name and he played in the NBA? Quite frankly, I don't get how people keep running back to watch these matches. Recently, he was supposed to fight Mike Tyson in a match that people would have showed up to watch just based off Tyson's name alone. You see, there's a short list of people in the history of their respective sport that no matter how old they get, no matter how past their prime they are, if they show up to compete, people will watch. For example, a guy like Tiger Woods is probably at the top of that list. Years removed from his prime because of injury after injury, but his name still carries the sport of golf, and it has for the last 3 decades. Mike Tyson is atop that list as well, and this fight between him and Jake Paul was going to have a huge draw before Tyson's literal body said, "Hey dude, you're damn near 60 years old. Go sit your ass down somewhere." Be honest though, do we really want to see Jake Paul fight Mike Tyson? It's only an exhibition and they say it doesn't count, but if he goes out there and knocks out a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, we're gonna feel some type of way. One, we're gonna be pissed. We don't want to see one of our legends go out there and get his head knocked off by some YouTuber. Because we know if it were 1994 instead of 2024, Jake Paul wouldn't even breathe in Mike Tyson's direction, let alone want to challenge him to a fight. Reason number 2, it still gives Paul zero credibility. I don't know if anybody told him this, but you get no points for knocking out a 60-year-old. It doesn't matter if he used to be the baddest man on the planet and one of the greatest that ever lived. That would be like today if I went out there and caught a touchdown pass on Coach Prime. Best to ever do it or not, nobody's gonna give me credit for going out there and going up top on a 56-year-old coach with 7 toes. It's not happening. But as far as Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, we're still gonna tune in and watch one of our legends go toe-to-toe with a social media influencer. That's the day we live in now. I say all that to kind of backtrack a little bit and say that if Jake Paul can get a fight with Conor McGregor, I will be the first person to buy that pay-per-view. If he thought all his other fights did numbers, wait until he would see the check he'd get after a bout with McGregor. Although McGregor as well would be significantly smaller, fighting at 5'8", 155 in his prime, it would still be must-watch television. But McGregor, unlike Paul, actually has credibility as a boxer. Because not only did he step in there with a professional boxer, he got in there with arguably the greatest to ever do it, Floyd Money Mayweather himself. And not only did he share the ring with the GOAT, he actually held his own, lasting all the way up until the 10th round. You see, there's levels to it, and while Paul keeps trying to trick y'all into fighting these washed up MMA fighters, McGregor's first time stepping in the ring, he stepped in there with an absolute assassin. In what ended up being by far the highest earning boxing match in the history of the sport. Floyd Mayweather walked away from the night making $275 million, while McGregor himself walked away with $100 million. I could get knocked out in the first, I could get put down in the 10th, it does not matter. If I'm waking up the next morning with 100 M's in my bank after just one night, sign me up. A fight between Paul and McGregor wouldn't garner that much of a payout, but it would still be very high, and depending on how it's marketed, it might have a chance to get close. The fight between Mayweather and McGregor took place almost 7 years ago back in 2017. Things have changed since then. Paul is one of the biggest social media influencers and YouTubers in the world right now. Although McGregor hasn't touched a ring or an octagon since 2021, he's still one of the most popular athletes in the world, and anything with his name attached to it, people are gonna watch. Pure entertainment. And McGregor is a different beast. Unlike these other MMA fighters that Paul is trying to fight, I believe McGregor to be too much of a dog to go out sad like that. Again, the size difference is a large one, so would he win? Maybe not. But would he make it interesting? Absolutely. Ever since Paul got into boxing and drew big numbers from his name and YouTube audience, people were asking if he was single-handedly hurting the sport of boxing. Paul was running up numbers and getting pay-per-views that some of the best boxers in the world couldn't do. We look at the sport now and how many box office guys can we name? I'm talking main event, pay-per-view guys that are going to get people to watch. There aren't many, probably less than a handful of guys in the whole sport. Gervonta Tank Davis, who is by far the biggest draw in the sport and a for sure headliner. Terrence Crawford, who after his masterclass against Errol Spence is definitely on that list as well. Can we still say Canelo Alvarez, although he has taken a slight hit as of late? Ryan Garcia was on his way before bro just completely went off the deep end. Maybe Tyson Fury, but I think he needs another big name like a Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua to really beat box office. I mean, there's a reason why in the last 15 years the UFC has taken a massive jump. Boxing is lacking big names, and the UFC has provided great storylines, big personalities, and at the end of the day, a great product inside the octagon. So it's not Jake Paul's fault that people are running to watch him instead of the guys we actually should be paying attention to. But I will say the sport is in a much better place now than it was 5 years ago following the retirement of Floyd. The sport of boxing was looking rough for a while. Either way, as the sport continues to try and find new ways to grow, I guess we can't be mad at Jake Paul for trying to fight these old MMA fighters inside a boxing ring.